Tom and Sophie were amateur ghost hunters, always looking for their next thrill. They had heard whispers about Ironwood Station, an old, abandoned train station deep in the woods that had been closed for decades. People spoke of eerie happenings, strange noises, and a ghostly figure in a conductor's uniform who could be seen pacing the platform late at night. They couldn't resist checking it out. Sophie wasn't so sure. She had a gut feeling that something wasn't quite right. Ironwood Station had always been a mystery to the locals, and those who had dared to venture near it reported feeling like they were being watched, or worse, trapped by an unseen force. The station sat at the edge of a dense forest, surrounded by overgrown weeds and creeping vines. The air was thick with the smell of rot and old wood. The station's once grand facade was now crumbling, with broken windows and doors hanging off their hinges. The platform itself was cracked and uneven, the tracks long rusted and barely visible through the layers of decaying leaves. "Tom, we'll be out of here in an hour. Let's just get our evidence and leave." They set up their equipment near the main building, and as night began to fall, the air grew cold. Sophie felt a chill creep up her spine as the shadows of the station seemed to grow darker, more oppressive. "Sophie, I don't know, Tom. This place feels wrong. Tom, it's all in your head. I'm going to get some footage of the platform." As he wandered toward the old platform, Sophie stayed behind, scanning the area through her camera. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. The night was silent, too silent, as if the forest had stopped breathing. Suddenly, Sophie heard it, a soft whistle, like a distant train approaching. It was strange because the train tracks hadn't been used in years. She quickly turned, her heart racing, but when she looked toward the platform, Tom was nowhere to be seen. "Sophie, Tom!" The whistle grew louder, closer, until Sophie felt the air shift around her. Her camera screen flickered, and then she saw it, a shadow standing on the far side of the platform. It was a figure dressed in an old conductor's uniform, its face obscured by the darkness. Her heart stopped. The whistle grew louder still, and then the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoed through the station. "Sophie! Tom!" Suddenly she felt a tug on her arm. She spun around, but no one was there. The air turned cold, colder than it should have been, and the smell of old, musty smoke filled her lungs, as if the train had just pulled into the station. Then, without warning, the platform lights flickered on. They buzzed erratically before illuminating the station in a sickly yellow glow. Sophie saw the figure again, standing at the far end of the platform. It wasn't moving, just standing still, watching her. "Whisper, get out!" Sophie froze, feeling her legs turn to stone. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening. They were no longer just whispers. They were voices, speaking in a language she didn't understand, the words ringing in her ears like a siren's call. "Sophie? Tom?" The air around her seemed to press in. The walls of the station started to close in, the shadows stretching unnaturally. The temperature dropped even further, until Sophie's breath came out in clouds of frost. She spun toward the door, but it slammed shut in her face. Desperate, Sophie ran toward the platform, but it was as if the station had shifted. The once straight path to the platform was now a maze of twisting, crooked tracks, and the figure in the conductor's uniform began to move toward her, its feet dragging across the floor with a sound like nails scraping against wood. Sophie stumbled back, tripping over the broken floorboards. The ghostly conductor was closer now, its face still hidden in the darkness, but the air around it seemed to vibrate, like a thunderstorm gathering on the horizon. Then, Sophie felt it, a cold breath against the back of her neck. She spun around, but there was nothing there, except for the conductor. It stood directly in front of her now, its face hidden in the shadow of its cap. Sophie's heart raced in her chest as it reached out, its hands pale and skeletal, the fingers long and twisted. She screamed, turning and running toward the station's exit. But the door wouldn't open. The station had locked her in. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she hammered against the door, panic surging through her veins. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the figure was gone. The station returned to its silent, decaying state. The platform lights flickered and died, and the air grew warm again, though still thick with the smell of rot. Sophie didn't know how long she had been trapped in that station. Time seemed to stretch, and her senses dulled, her eyes refusing to focus on anything clearly. She finally managed to push the door open and stumbled out into the night. She never found Tom. The authorities searched the area, but there was no sign of him. The search party came back exhausted, claiming that the woods around Ironwood Station had a way of making people lose track of time, making them forget where they were going. Ironwood Station still stands, abandoned and silent, its platform dark and empty. And the locals still say that on the rarest of nights, you can hear the whistle of an old train and the sound of footsteps walking the platform, just like Tom heard, just like Sophie felt. Have you ever found yourself hopelessly lost, confused, and feeling like you were being watched? Beware. There are terrifying and mysterious beings that few have ever seen and lived to talk about. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and follow us for more. Join us on TikTok and YouTube for more bone-chilling chronicles, if you dare.